Hello guys, David Vose here, sitting here on the porch. Second cup of coffee. Beautiful day, fluffy clouds. But it dried out a lot, hasn't rained much. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I feel like that is getting harder and harder to do. I have no problems. Yeah, no problems. And yet, I have noticed over the last few months a pall over the world. Oh, I don't know if you heard that. Pine nuts are dropping everywhere on my roof, and I didn't know what that. It was like a pow. Like I was like, what? I've lived in the mountains all my life where pine trees grow. Now I will admit we didn't have, I guess, pinyon pine in northern Idaho. I don't remember, and I always thought, what, pine nuts? What good are they? I never knew of anybody that could eat them. They're inside of a pine cone, and I didn't know how to get them out, and I didn't know, But actually, if you know when to get them, I believe you can get pine nuts just about out of any pine cone. You can put them in the fire or something, but these pinyons, man, they are huge nuts. They're not as big as a pecan, of course, but almost as big, half as big as a peanut. Especially some of the bigger ones. And the shell is quite soft. And they are hard shells, but they're thin. And the whole inside is a moist, very tender-like nut. Much more soft than, well, maybe a pecan is kind of soft like that. But actually, they're about the best nut you can eat. And they grow everywhere in the world. And there are people starving everywhere. And nobody realizes, there's pine nuts. There's cactus. Do you realize if you're in the desert and you don't have any water, you see these movies where people are crawling and they're dying or whatever. If you're in a desert, you can find a cactus. I mean, maybe they don't have them in the Sahara. I don't know, but they're pretty much all around most deserts. And you can eat any cactus that grows, and they have water. They're very, very moist, so you really can't die of thirst either if you're in the desert. But there's gooseberries and all kinds of other low vine-like grapes that grow all over. Different kinds of berries and nuts that grow throughout the entire world. And I don't know why people are starving. And I'm watching my dogs, and I've been watching my dogs for years. When I had pecan trees, they'd eat the pecans. They'd crunch them and eat. I don't know how they do it. Whether they just eat the shells. It sounds like they are. They're crunching them, but I don't know if they kind of spit the shells out. But dogs naturally forage nuts. I don't believe they're carnivores originally. And that's important as far as philosophy goes, because there's so much we're being brainwashed about. The whole nature of the world, we've been deceived, friends. But I was pondering the information that we've been doing the last few days. And I realized that the information is so important, just as we gave it. But the implications of that information, if put together with all the information that we know about the Bible, our Christian view of the world, which I suppose is slightly different than if you're Islamic. I don't think most people realize that depending on what you internally believe, what you've accepted and believe, and you would swear that's your belief, that's going to be your internal thought process. It would be quite different if you were Muslim as opposed to Christian, Or as opposed to something like a Jehovah's Witness, or how about an atheist? What does an atheist think? If they really don't believe in any deity, then they probably don't believe in any of the holy books, or any, like I don't believe in law, but I think what they would probably then think is this a big accident, that it's just things flying everywhere and there's no right or wrong at all. You see, I believe that we have to find the right path, that there is a wrong path. And I imagine atheists would have to believe that, confronted with two paths, that one leads off a cliff and one leads to paradise. If they could see that, they would say, oh yes, of course there are two paths, there may be many, but the one path that we ought to take, the best path, is the wise path. But if I choose the other path that's not wise, it's okay. Nothing will happen to me. Nobody's going to judge me. Yeah, but that path leads over the cliff. So you should not take that path if you don't want to die. And ultimately, I believe you could carry that further and conclude that nobody wants to die. Now, there might be somebody in great pain who believes in a resurrection that would rather die than go through the pain, or somebody who actually doesn't believe in the paradise, but they're going through so much pain they just can't. There's just no other, they can't bear it. Yeah, I get that. Or somebody could be depressed and they believe, now I don't think it's just depression that causes somebody to commit suicide. Anybody who's never experienced a great, overwhelming pain of loss, of panic, that you just can't take your next breath. It's too overwhelming. The emotional darkness that some people have been in, like if you were in love and that was taken from you. It is overwhelming for a while, but you usually get over it. And some people get into situations that are so overwhelming they think they can't get out of it. There's no way out of it. Well, there is a way out of everything, but that's another subject. The truth, though, is that if you take that path, you will die, and a relatively healthy, happy individual would not want to die. So therefore, that we would call wrong, and this is what we would call right. Now, Christians put on that right and wrong pathway some other baggage. What they put on there is some kind of guilt. Well, what if we said, not only will you take that path and fall off the cliff, and you'll die, but everybody will hate you, and we will write a book saying you were the worst person who ever lived, and we'll mock you and laugh at you. Now, you say, well, of course now I'd never go down that path. But you're going to be dead. You wouldn't, if you didn't believe in life after this, if you were atheist or something, and you didn't believe in any purpose, and you didn't believe that there was a divine spirit or a being within us, then you would say, well, I'm going to be dead, so I won't have any pain, and I won't care if you're laughing at me. And yet, a lot of them might feel that's added baggage, that'd be another reason why they wouldn't want to do it. Because even if you're an atheist, most atheists want people to like them. So now there's another added part of this. If we were going to, an atheist may say, I'm just following logic. I don't care about all this emotionalism or shame. I don't believe in that. I'm just a practical person, And you haven't proved to me of any divine being. It's ridiculous. There's no Santa Claus coming to give us presents. So I'm just going to take the practical approach. Well, what is it, though, that makes you feel compassionate towards another individual? So what, you didn't want them to be in pain. You didn't want to hurt them, because a lot of atheists probably wouldn't want to hurt other people. There's no way, if you really believe that there's nothing after this, then it wouldn't matter if the whole universe just blew up one day and we're all gone. Nobody would feel any pain. And that's just life. That's existence. If that's what is, then that's what is, and nobody can do anything about it anyway. And that's your practical way of thinking. And yet, why did you feel compassion? Why did you wish that person could be happy, and you would give them a little of your happiness just so they could be happy? Well, I suppose there are atheists that probably wouldn't want other people to be happy or don't care. But I think that's a whole other issue. I think that's vengeance, or that's anger and madness. I think it's an aberration to be mad, to be crazy, to not have compassion. That's what that means when you don't have compassion. You're crazy. Now, one could say, yeah, but if you're good to others, then maybe they'll be good to you and your children, and so you're helping yourself. So it's a logical thing, a survival thing. But I don't think it's all just survival. I think some people don't want to harm. If they were in the dark, in the forest, and nobody could know, most people wouldn't hurt or molest someone or I don't even know how many, what the average, if you did a test, which you couldn't do, but I mean, if you could, and you could put a whole bunch of people, but one at a time, you had a sample of people, and one at a time you could put them in some area where no one would ever know what they were doing. They could get away with it. Nobody would see them except deity. But if they didn't believe in deity, then theoretically they wouldn't have to worry about that. And if they really believed that there was no afterlife, and they were convinced of it beyond anything, they absolutely knew. And they didn't believe in any divine being. They didn't believe in, then they wouldn't believe in love. They wouldn't believe in kindness or compassion. But I still think most of them would probably still have compassion. I think it's something innate. Now, it may be part of the evolutionary process, just part of our makeup, an instinctual behavior, helping each other to survive. But what is the purpose of survival? If you don't believe in... Now, here's the tricky part. A religious person or Christian would say, if you don't believe in God, what's the point of life? But a lot of people who don't necessarily believe in God would still say that they believe the universe is alive and we're here, and they're not sure, but maybe we do have life after this. So they're not sure. They just don't believe in any bearded man up yonder in the heavens on a rainbow. They don't believe that we're judged after this life and that we're going to go to heaven or hell if we've done something good or bad. And they really don't believe that. But yet they may still believe that we're here and that there's advantages to getting along and helping one another. And they may believe scientifically that's what that little feeling is within them. It's just a little compassion or whatever. It's just their instinctual evolutionary memories. It's trying to preserve everything. Then I would ask them, what would be the point of this evolutionary memory? What would be the point of this instinctual behavior of survival? Why would we try so hard to survive? You think about the little cells or the sperm cells, and they're all trying to get to the ovum, and I guess one or something makes it out of billions or something. I don't know exactly how many there's supposed to be in there, but it's like a brutal race. Only one wins. Could it be that way on this earth? We're all surviving, and only a few are going to survive? Oh, well, absolutely not. I'm a Christian, Dave. The Lord loves us all. Well, I believe that. But let me ask you this. Think about all the sparrows that fall. I know the Bible says that the Lord knows about all of them and cares about them. Maybe there's a purpose for their death, and maybe they graduate. Okay, but we'll get to that. But if you didn't believe that, you didn't know that, and you didn't know for sure if there was an afterlife. Especially you wouldn't know if you think about it, why, even if there was an afterlife for the birds, they don't really have a lot of cognition or awareness of their own life. If they were reborn as another sparrow or some other animal, they wouldn't remember their past life. Even humans, supposedly we don't even remember our past lives. So what's the point of us going around and around and around like this? We don't get the idea of immortality, then it doesn't seem like it would make much difference. And yet, that sparrow that might not even be very conscious of his own being, he's not planning the future, he's not thinking about his loved ones, he's just existing from that moment to the next moment. Instinctual nature kicks in, he's trying to find food, building a nest, he's got things to do, but it's all like a little robot. He doesn't care whether he lives or dies. And yet, something within the bird, not outside of himself, it's not some angel above that warns or tells the birdie what to do. The birdie knows within himself. However you want to imagine he comprehends this, that his life is precious. He does not want to die. But if he doesn't know what life and death really is, if he's not aware of that, then why does he care whether he lives or dies? Is there something holding that bird in this life? How do we know if the bird is even able to break free from this instinctual nature that's within him that drives him to go pick up sticks and make a nest and, drives survival and tells him to take care of these children? Even humans were told to do all these things. Mothers got to be mothers. But is that something are they being compelled to have children? It seems like that's the way the Democrats feel, like, oh, how dare you say that I have to have babies? Like, I have authority of my own body. I can make my own decisions. I don't have to go by nature and the intrinsic need to survive, to keep the human race alive. I don't have any feelings for a child. I don't want to nurture a baby. I don't want to suckle my young. Leave me alone. I want to go off over here and be a robot and live inside of a computer. So what is driving that bird to do anything possible to save his own life? You see a goat that escapes this cougar by scaling a cliff, straight up and down with his little hooves. He's hanging on for dear life on one little crevice in a rock in order to escape the cougar. You see a little baby zebra running zigzag in panic, trying to get away from this hyena. And then you see the mother come darting over the hill. You can tell she's going to do everything possible, even risk her own life to save that baby. Why, if they don't have any consciousness of life or how wonderful it is here? They're not really enjoying it and anticipating tomorrow and planning a future. Why do they care if they don't know of their future? Why are they trying to stay alive? Is there some instinctual program that's forcing us to live, but we don't really want to? That's deceiving us to keep plugging along and being survivors and helping our children and helping our neighbor? This is against our will? Well, if it's not you making these decisions, but some other power exercising authority over you, forcing you to live in this world, then there you go, atheist. There's your divine deity or devil, take your pick. And actually, I think maybe that's what the Bible is talking about. The higher consciousness and the lower consciousness and the divine consciousness that is pervading all of nature, and all the whys and the wherefores and what ifs that you and I must understand. Even if our life is in peril, we must find the answers to these questions. Or maybe the little sparrow is very conscious of being alive and truly chooses to be alive, regardless of whether he can plan a future and get a mortgage, but he still loves life. So, a lot of people would say, if the Lord loves them, how could he really say he loves birds, when little sparrows, when they fall, they're just a little spark of divinity that don't really remember who they are much. It might be that experience as a sparrow is part of a memory that's going to go now into the file of some greater soul that has conscious awareness and can add that feeling of what it's like to be a bird into their memories. And that would be the way I would look at, actually, the whole, because if we existed and evolved for millions of years, and we experienced being a bird ourselves, we probably experienced being many animals. We might have experienced as one soul being separated and broken up into all kinds of little experiences. We may have the ability to be birds and foxes and trees, and the divine spirit may be everywhere and in all things. And the tree isn't going to actually remember to ever be conscious. There's no point to being a tree except for what that existence and what that knowledge is to the divine one mind. So in a sense, then, ultimately, even if you believe that you're a soul and you're going to be reincarnated and go to the next step and the next step, and you're going to graduate and you're going to have your memories and you're going to have such joy and wonderful things happen in the future. But if you died and you weren't worthy to go to heaven or be immortal so you could remember that life, and you'd have this time continuum, last life, then you could remember further back maybe the life before it, and it was all some sort of continuum, and it was you. But if you died and you weren't worthy of retaining that and continuing on with those memories and adding memories in an immortal life, then what was the point of living that life if you're going to forget it all? And you say, yeah, but you'll remember it maybe in another life down the road when you do get immortality. But by the time you get immortality, there might have been 10 lives. And all of those are going to be just memories in a way, there's no continuum. And at that point, if all those lives now are you, then you're not, your actual self is really almost next to not important. It adds to your essence and so forth, yeah. But it's not, that thing that you hang on to called life because we're afraid to die. And that thing that gives us so much joy that we weep when we're married, or when we, maybe when we buy our new house, first house or something. And we have this joy. And we see all of our family, and we have our first child. These are things that make us so happy. And little organizations like Jehovah's Witnesses tap into that and say, oh, that's wonderful. You want that, don't you? Paradise, huh? Well, you follow our religion, and we believe that we're all going to have that. And so they want to believe that. I know most Jehovah's Witnesses are Jehovah's Witnesses because they want to believe in this paradise. They want the earth to be a paradise, and they want to have happiness of their family and no more problems and more death. And a lot of Christians are Christians because they want to believe in some kind of afterlife in heaven, even if they don't even know what it is. But they don't know for sure. But I think there's a lot of why Christians don't want to believe in any kind of reincarnation or any of these other things, because they want to keep it simple. They want to believe that their life as they are right now is something that is going to live forever. This personality. Now, they don't mind adding memories in the future and maybe living a million years and not even remembering this. But there's a continuum of life to the million years, so that doesn't bother them. Because everybody has to remember that when they were a little child, and they have some flash memories of being 5 or 6, 7 years old, that life at 5 or 6 or 7 was so precious. But now it almost means nothing, because you can hardly even remember who it was. You're not even the same person. You don't even have the same beliefs. You don't believe in Santa Claus anymore. You don't have the same desires and likes anymore. Your ambitions have become something entirely different. Maybe you don't even remember your family at that time. Maybe you were born an orphan or something. There's lots of things that just doesn't make sense. And I think this is why a lot of people who are atheists or leaning that way or agnostic, or even if they are from the Eastern religions and they believe in reincarnation, they might not feel like they could achieve any kind of true freedom or immortality in this life or in any life to come in the near future. Because think about what they believe, that life, we're in this classroom, but it's going to go on for 1.5 trillion years. This is what we're learning about what is evidently the ancient truth about this little classroom that we're in. In Christianity, we've narrowed it down to where it's just a few thousand years. But even that, it's like, okay, so I lived a life back in the days of Abraham or Moses or something. Something I could probably not even really remember in this life. And yay, I might be able to regress myself and go back and have that little vision or memory. But all it would be like is a great dream. I had a wonderful dream last night. I was this place or I was that. But you wake up and it just kind of fades away. That's not the present. That's not reality. It's just a little dream. A little woof of smoke. What's important is now. And all that is important is now. Even the future is an instinctual urge to prepare, get enough nuts to get through the winter and that kind of thing. But it's more of a fear thing where we're driven to prepare. So I think all of this confusion is causing mental illness. For the atheists, I think it's giving them an excuse to be distant from other humans, to not have a real reason to be in somebody who goes around giving charity or building institutions that might help somebody in the future, libraries. What's the point if you're an atheist and you don't believe in anything? And if you're an evolutionist that thinks that maybe the essence, the instinctual memories carry on, you still wouldn't have a lot of incentive to believe in life in the sense of there is this love, this divine universe of love. And let's say then you do, though, believe in this divine universe of love. And you believe that you'll be rewarded and we'll move on and we'll always be alive, we'll always be immortal. Wouldn't it, if you really knew what you believed, if you could really square it eventually someday and understand what you really thought was the truth, would you be happy about it? Would you be joyful? I mean, you can put on a joyful face. I know Christians sit around a campfire and go, oh, we're going to heaven someday, and it's gonna be so great. Oh, Sister Bobby, let's eat some cake. And it really is just the present. They're happy. And they enjoy the little orgasmic feelings of of singing and happiness, but they don't know anything really. It's based on faith. It's based on the belief, which gives them a little feelings of happiness now. But in times when things are all going wrong, they still have these doubts. They still have all this confusion. And in that case, it could be that all their love and goodness to others is all based on some reward system that they're taught, that if you be a good person, they get to get a better position in heaven. Now, if you believe that after this you go right straight to heaven, and there's an eternal world, and that everybody that's ever lived one life and died and then were judged and went to heaven, that might give a lot of people happiness to think, okay, this is temporary. I'll be able to remember this one life, that I can remember most of my, well enough. I remember the last 20 years pretty well. And I remember little things when I was a little kid. So, yeah, I didn't exist before I was born. I don't mind if I don't remember the first 10 years. But, yeah, I remember this life. And then I'm going to go to heaven, and I'm going to be able to, it's like I'm going to take this one personality and this one person, and I'm going to have immortality, and I'm going to expand and add, and everything that was wrong will be made right, and we'll live forever. Now, that's the only way that a person could truly be happy. Or is it? Because you really need to think about what you're believing there. I don't think that Christians really think it through. So you've already thought it through because you were told that reincarnation was bad. That's wrong. So you automatically come up with the reason, because then you'd never have immortality. You wouldn't remember all those lives. It would be an endless life and death and cycles, and you wouldn't want that. You're looking forward to heaven. But have you ever thought about what heaven's going to be like? What you believe in. Okay, up there in heaven, there's not going to be any hanky-panky. And they shall be like the angels of heaven, neither marrying or giving in marriage. They will not probably be allowed to drink wine, or perhaps they will not ever again experience a thunderbolt down from the sky, and it pours and rains and floods out the neighborhood. That's a tragedy. We ain't going to have any tragedies in heaven. But won't you miss those thunderstorms? That's the highlight of my life sometimes, is these thunderstorms. But I've learned to get through life, and I'm not too worried. But it can cause a great deal of trouble. So in heaven, do we have houses already built for us? Do we have to build the house? If we have to build the house, what if a tree falls on our head? Will there just not be any pain? Wouldn't that get boring? So what we're looking forward to is a perfect world after this one, where we can remember this stupid little life we're having here and continue on in a world where we're just sitting, I don't know, on a beach drinking margaritas. Well, I don't even know if you're allowed to drink margaritas in heaven. If there's not going to be any more pain, then what's the point of climbing the mountain? Right? The pain was the part we had to overcome, and we felt so amazing getting to the top. We felt special, but you won't be special. Everybody in heaven gets to go to the mountain on an escalator. No more pain or tears or crying. Think about that. But if you did believe that, then you'd have to believe that there is no reincarnation, because that would mess that up. You wouldn't have any peace of mind that you yourself were going to live forever. But I tell you that the Eastern religion does not believe, the Egyptian, the Babylonian, the Greek, none of these ancient religions believed that when you died, you went to heaven and lived the eternal, immortal life. What we were talking about in the last few days is, in astrology, is the real truth of what all the scriptures teach, whether it's true or not. That's what all scriptures teach. It's in our Bibles, in the Hindu, it's in everybody's books. And it's something that Christians, and I don't even think Hindus, have any clue. So, for instance, we have these questions running around like, will we live on this earth forever, or we go to heaven? Is heaven somewhere else? We're going to die and go to heaven? Well, if you look at the ages of these billions of, an age of Brahman is billion years, and you get to looking at all this, you realize that they didn't believe in any heaven that we've contrived as Christians. What they believed in was this immortal area where these stars don't go down into the abyss. They don't die. And it was, as we said, Draco, the Bear constellation, which has Polaris, Cephas, and a few of these Cygna and Vega, and sort of these immortal beings that are in the heavens that never die anymore. And that's the kingdom of heaven. That's why it's called in the north, because it's near the North Star. Now, so remember, we have the earth, we have the heaven, and we have hell. We have the abyss, you could say. So where are these realms? Well, the realm of earth is here. The realm of heaven is in the sky. And the deities that reign, or the kingdom of Uranus, is the kingdom of heaven. And the father, Cephas, rules there. And Cassiopeia, the mother, and Andromedus, and all, so they had this beautiful heaven, and it was a paradise because the animals that was this garden was the zodiac. And the zodiac was these animalistic natures, deities that rule over the earth. And so we lived in the earth, and we were reigned over by these instinctual urges and powers and rules that would come up from the sea, go up into heaven and reign for a while in the kingdom of living beings, and then go back down into the abyss. And from there they would go to the many houses or regions beneath the earth, which they called in the Egyptian the Duat, in the Hebrew it's Sheol, and in the Greek it's Hades. And they had a deity that ruled over Hades. And they had a deity that ruled over the earth. And they had a deity that ruled over the heavens. And it was the heavens that ruled over the earth and everything. Well, they had a deity who ruled in heaven over the earth. And it wasn't a person. But it was this star that they sort of, in the story, idolatrized as a person. Now, we'll get into more about what that means, how they saw that, or how we're supposed to see that. But the earth was never immortal. The immortal ones live in heaven. And regardless of what they thought was going on there, I don't know if, you might think, well, maybe they thought that when you die, you go up there as a person. And there's a planet up there, and they're living up there. But I don't think that's what it was exactly. I think it's more about cycles and knowing where you're at in the advancement of the present. And those who weren't ready to go forward when they died had to kind of go back down in the darkness and pay for their sins and be ruled over by these devils until they learned their lessons. They had to go through the classroom of the tempter. But eventually they'd rise on the horizon and they'd become a star. No, I don't believe we're going to go to a planet and live, another planet. No, I don't believe we're going to become stars. But whenever a new star would be found, because there were so many of them, I mean, the stars are innumerable, like the sands of the sea, and so Abraham's seed was to become like the stars of heaven. But it was a parable. We weren't being told we were going to go live there. We were just saying that like the stars that rise, we're going to rise in the heavens and advance and not have to go back down and be ruled over by these archons of these lower, down into hell. We'll be exalted, crowned, get our white robes, and we'll be one of the stars that's immortal, that doesn't have to go down anymore, around the polar region where they don't ever go down again. We've reached the top, and now we're in heaven, and that's a whole nother deal. What does it mean? Well, just that what we are, we're just going to be more advanced, have more joy, and more freedom, and not be ruled over by these brute beasts. But we're going to tame it, and it'll be a paradise. But we'll get into deeper explanations just to that. But so, let's just take it from this point of view at first, so we can get the particulars down. So, we're on the earth, and on the earth, things die. And so, these beings that rule over these houses, which are rotating around you, and have these, like Leo and Cancer and the bull, Aries, this ram, was coming up over the horizon and going into the land of the living and reigning then as a divine being, reigning, coming up out of the hell, being raised up from the dead, and taking their turn at reigning over the earth. But eventually they go around and another one comes up and they take over. And eventually those divine beings go down over the horizon and into the abyss. So this is why Zeus threw the 6 titans into Tartarus, which is the lowest of the hells. So why 6? Because the titans are these 6 animals, or I should say, these divine, or these archons, or whatever these beings are, but they have animal heads. So today, people in their superstition and their ignorance think that the Egyptians and the Babylonians worshipped reptilians and deities that look like wolves and hawks and things. But those are astrological symbols, and they reign over us. And each of them rules in a certain house. And there are 12 gates coming into this temple. And you come in through one of their houses, and you're ruled by that house. And so, not only are we ruled by these houses, but the whole world is ruled over by that house during this certain age. And then there are different ages. And so each of the divine beings gets their time to rule. And this is like, Jesus says, my kingdom's no part of this kingdom. This isn't my kingdom. Right? In my Father's house, there's many houses. And I'll prepare a place for you in the future when the heavens that are now are going to be rolled over, and the stars that are now will fall, and there'll be a new group of stars reigning over. Right? The kingdom of my Father, not the kingdom of darkness. Now, remember, we were all there at the founding of the world. The morning stars, clapping our hands for joy. So we're going to return to the stars. There's a lot of cycles involved, and everybody's going to get there. But the wheel has actually 24 houses, 12 at night, 12 at day. So yes, there are these 12 archons that are like demons that rule over hell. That's typified by the night. During the day, there's 12 that rule over the daylight. And so that's heaven, ruling the day. Well, obviously, there's not a bunch of demons ruling at night and good guys ruling during the day. This is a symbol. And it's a symbol of the cycles of time and the revolutions of darkness and light and these graduations and advancement. And like Paul says, the resurrection, The Lord gives it a body as it pleases him. There is the body of a fish, body of a bird, body of a mammal, and of a man. 4 different gradations. In the resurrection, see, that's the bestial down there and ruled over by Yahweh in this world, the world of carnal natures. But the living creatures that are immortal around our Heavenly Father's throne, it says that there will be one glory as that of the moon, and one as that of the sun, and another glory of the stars, and each star differeth in star and glory. So we'll graduate in an eternal progression, you see, as the Apostle Paul is teaching there. We're going to have eternal progression, even though we don't know the width and the breadth and the height and the depth. But we know that when he appears, we will be like him. This world that we live in, the kingdom of this world, which is the only kingdom there is to live in a conscious mind. Because remember, the divine beings that are ruling over us aren't really the conscious. The ones in the bottom of the wheel seem to have a lot of negative. They're going through some sort of course. One age follows another age. They had some belief system that we would die and go through the next stage and advance. And we'd eventually get to the kingdom of heaven, and we'd get to go on the top side. But we'd always be ruled over by another group of individuals, which it could be the devil or it could be the Lord, Jesus. We call him, well, the 2 serpents is Jesus and Satan. And so, when the earth wobbles on its axis because of the precession of the equinoxes, there is long ages where the devil reigns. And that's when everything is being reigned over by the bottom of the wheel. And then when the rotation turns, and now we're being reigned over by the upper part of the wheel, that's because the dragon has now been split asunder by Marduk, but Polaris rises, and when Polaris is the pole star, when it reaches its zenith, then the kingdom of the phoenix will rise. Now, the phoenix bird was always a serpent. It's just a dragon, basically, with wings. So it's this winged serpent that's going to reign, and it has 6 wings. The other one has 6 wings. So it's night and darkness that reign. Our Heavenly Father reigns over everything, but his 2 sons take turns reigning. And there is the 7 times that was given to Cain. And he would be a hairy man. He would have to go through this classroom of graduation. So there's this story that is told in astrology. For the children, it's just a simple story with a simple cosmology. We live on the earth. When we die, we go to the underworld. Just like all the stars. You see some of the archons when they die. Christ, our elder brother, as we lovingly call him here in Christianity, he also had to die. He was born to die. It was his destiny. It was prophesied. He was the firstborn among many brethren. He partook of flesh and blood as did his brethren. And so there's, out of all the stars, there's one star that's going around and around in the sky that dips down into the sea and down into the abyss and goes to hell first. And that'll be the first one to rise on the horizon in the resurrection. And then his brothers and his sisters and his whole family will come around. And then he's going to try and deliver from this beast down there in the bottom, these archons that are like scorpion and serpents and all these things. He's going to deliver his bride from this beast. And then he's going to wed the bride. And when they arise on the horizon together at dawn, then they're going to make their way to the top of the mountain, to their father's house, where the wedding will be. Now, obviously, if you really know and understand that that's what we're getting all of this information from, this stars that are going around and around, then it becomes very obvious that this is a parable. That we don't really go to hell and we don't really go to heaven. What's really going on is we're going through advanced cycles where the earth and the conscious mind is progressing and going through these houses. And one day we're going to go and advance beyond this schoolroom and get immortality and have white robes. And our star will rise. We'll be hand in hand with the Lord, rising as his bride, and all of the virgins in their train. And we'll go to the heavenly court and sing songs and say, glory, glory, glory. We'll have the blessed marriage and wedding and have the children and have dominion over the animals, which is the zodiac, meaning we'll never die again, but we'll take the nature that was in us, the lion, and it'll eat straw like the bull. We'll live in a different ecology. We'll live with the great polar bear in the north. We'll live in Shambhala in the north, the grand city of the great king. Beautiful for situation. And we'll drink wine and we'll party and we'll just probably go swimming and dancing and a lot of things like that, and we'll be forever happy. But what are we talking about, friends? In the East, they say, well, it means that we're reincarnated and one day we'll reach some nirvana or whatever. We won't have to come back to this world. But if you look at their time scale, it's millions and billions of years. And most of these Hindus don't even believe that this is about to be over. Even Madame Blavatsky, in researching all of this, and evidently with some sort of divine hand upon her, almost through like some kind of channeling or vision, some guidance by the Holy Spirit, as the other apostles, of course, were led along by Holy Spirit. She helped us to understand that these cycles aren't over. We've got thousands and probably millions of years into the future, maybe longer. But that we have reached, she talked about these certain races and advancing and going to certain planes. But nobody really knows where any of these planes are. There really isn't any time and space, so they're not out there. And if there is no time and space, then every one of these planes are all right here. And no matter how many times or ways you try to explain this, we don't know. You can't say what it will be because we don't know. But it's only given to us in a parable, and by faith is how we are going along. So this is why the Apostle Paul says that we do not yet know what we will be like. But when we see him, we'll be like him. It also reminds me of what the Apostle Paul says in Ephesians. The heights and the depth and the breadth and the width, no man knows. We don't know. What we have been told, the clearest information about the afterlife that we've been told, is in the New Testament. Not really in the Bhagavad Gita. But in the New Testament, it tells us clearly that we will be physical beings, immortal, clothed with immortality, that, as Jesus said, I was flesh and bones. A spirit doesn't have flesh and bones, as you see that I do. He raised up that body that died and went down through hell, which represents the graduating advancement through the houses of hell, conquering each of these planes as we go. And finally, this is in the story of Ishtar losing all of her clothes, going down into hell. And the Savior coming down there and rescuing her. And they end up coming up out of hell and being married. And we just heard that story from different nationalistic points of view. It's really a story there about your soul, or your memories, or who you really are. And we've got to rescue who we really are from this delusion, this conscious mind that is ruling over us, the lower ego, which is the I am, your conscious awareness that's in this delusion. And it's keeping you in this delusion because it's a liar. And we're under this covenant, which is causing this period of time that we are to be punished. And it's this lower ego that's put us here. But he doesn't have any authority over the children when they grow up. They become heirs. This is another parable. All of it's a parable, not about where we're going, whether heaven or earth, or what our body's going to look like. It's not about who's naughty or nice. It's not about whether we're going to have trees and lakes and streams or some other crazy world that we can't even imagine. But what it's about is that life and existence is a duality that we suffer and then we have exaltation. The cycles may go on forever, up and down and up and down. But we're promised in the New Testament, which was never really understood in the Eastern religions. It's difficult to find this information. We got smaller books, and it's more to the point here with the New Testament, that we're told that it isn't going to be forever. It's forever because there's always forever little tadpoles waiting to be born. The multitudes of the fishes in the sea that's got to advance and one day become themselves conscious. And then they go through this lower consciousness when they're just children. A schoolmaster, which is this world of life and death. But once we reach the horizon, we get our wings, and we pass this classroom. We overcome more or less these carnal natures. We get our white robe, and we fly off up to Cephas and Cassiopeia, our mother. And we have this wedding. And what does that mean? It means that our being is wed to an immortal body. So yeah, the cycles will go on, but much slower. Remember, if you look in the north and you see the pole star, it almost never moves. Now, is there a way to be happy in a world where nothing ever goes wrong and we're sitting around and little servants coming around feeding us grapes, and we're dipping our toes in a pool of water that's at perfect temperature where we're never cold or hot? I don't think that that's possible. I think this whole story is not only a parable, but I think it must be understood that as we look at the parable, we realize that the pain is what keeps us going forward. The ages continue to go, and the fact that we reach immortality may only mean that immortality is not something to attain, it's something to realize. It's something that you've got to believe in. You've got to understand that it's an illusion down here with this carnal mind and this lower I am. That our existence has time and space only because we like to immerse ourselves in our pretend, in our play. And the pain is just part of our own delusion that we are doing so that we can experience all these variables, breaking it down, living through hard times so that we can achieve the glory of experiencing it. So will we ever get to a place where we will no longer want to pack our bags and leave the house and go on a long mountain trek where it's very, very cold and we have to go camping and we're going to rough it? Why would we want to do that? We're kings. We live in a palace. We've got porcelain toilets. Well, we want to because nature is beautiful. Sometimes we want to feel what it's like to be cold and then have to get up and find a way to get warm, to overcome that feeling, to experience it and realize that we're greater than those things. But those things are all part of us and we want to experience all of it. No, we shouldn't ever get to a place where we enjoy killing something for nothing or harming others or hurting anyone or hurting ourselves. But why not? We could do anything we want. Because that's not fun. We need a balanced world. See, when you're in ignorance, when you're in the woods and you're afraid and you don't know how to take care of yourself, you can die. And that's not a good experience. Ultimately, of course, it could be an experience that we had before we understood things. But when we become an adult, we can go out in the woods and camp and survive it. And we actually enjoy it. We're not huddled in a tent scared out of our mind of the bears in the darkness and the little demons in the darkness. We know we're grown up. We realize there are no demons. We realize now, yes, the negative things will come, but they're not demons. They're not bad. They're experiences, and we can overcome them one by one. So when will nirvana come in 1 trillion years? Well, I don't think so. I think nirvana will come when we are ready. And as a nation, as a world today, in our consciousness here, in this age, I think as an entire globe, we're going through an initiation. If you look at the news, it's hard to think that these individuals know what's going on, any of them. And yet they all seem to be being led by their nose hairs into these crazy concepts where it's like we're pretending that we're in a movie. And the goblins and the vampires are coming to suck our blood, and the monsters, and sometimes we want to be monsters, and we're all just like, even the ones that are going into this real depression and this crying out, Lord, it's so painful. And we have loved ones that we've lost. And we think about it at night and we pray and we say, Lord, where's my loved one? And, where's my happiness? And where's my bottle of whiskey? Well, I don't want you to take that from me, Lord. I like that bottle of whiskey. But what's a bottle of whiskey do? Well, it makes you sleep. And it's like kind of, I'm too tired to be strong right now and be happy. I need a little help. I need to just kind of go to sleep. And maybe in my sleep, I'll dream of monsters. And I don't know. Maybe the monsters are a little bit necessary right now because we're still in this imaginary world of fear. And as soon as we realize that we don't want to be afraid anymore, because I don't think anybody can waken us out of it until we awaken ourselves. But I'm not saying that Jesus isn't coming. I'm saying he is. And this is a mass initiation. And I think that the ones who were doing the temples, the priests that were initiating just a couple of thousand years ago, I think they are now to a place where they're trying to initiate the whole world. Perhaps because there is coming some cataclysm, and it's a cycle, and it has to be done before we all die. They want us to awaken, and we were falling behind, so they made movies where we could live a whole lifetime in an hour and maybe gain some, achieve something from watching the movie, right? Because the movie's like, why is there pain? Why is there suffering? It's like a way to, like I'm doing here, I'm step by step leading your mind into thoughts to where you can come to a conclusion. And a lot of these movies are doing the same thing. But it isn't the movies. That's what they did for years. We sat and watched HBO and, whatever those other movie, I can't even remember, something, I don't know, for a while it was blockbuster movies, VHS tapes. Then we ended up with cable and then it was like, we used to go to theaters and, radio. It was radio for a while. But since radio, this last 70, 80 years, which is a generation, since World War II, it seems like there's some, and I have to say Bavarian, because it's certainly a lot of Bavarians at the top of this. They're somehow pulling off this entire hoax, making us believe in a world that doesn't exist, NASA telling us that the stars are hundreds of light years away and planets look like this and chemicals are mixed in a tube and you take it and you feel better, and pharmaceutical drugs and manipulation and mind control as all a huge experiment. But what was the experiment for? Was it that they were trying to get us through mind trauma to reach a certain awakening? Were they trying to help us? If they weren't trying to help us, why was Jesus letting them do it? Why was Krishna and Buddha not coming down and doing something? Well, remember, Christ would return again. And that's the Jesus is going to, of course, come again. We all got to come again. But this time, Jesus will have others that will be ready now to get the gospel. Because by the time the next cataclysm comes, we don't want to be thrown into another world that starts over again. And we don't have the ability to have books and VHS tapes and news and pretend fantasy worlds and overcoming and mathematical problems and quizzes and lies and deception to overcome. We'll just be living in a world where no one can deceive you because it's a physical world. And if you don't learn enough by that time, then the next advanced stage might be much more difficult. Perhaps they were trying to give us a head start. Perhaps they were trying to raise our vibration because they know that we're all immortal and we're all wise and we're all ready for this. And that we'll be able to see, because remember what we talked about? The book of Revelation is the unveiling, the apocalypse, which is the unveiling, the revealing. And it's interesting that the Apostle Paul says that the man of sin must be revealed. But the Christ is revealed in us. So I'm just saying, I don't think that we have anything to worry about. I don't think that there is any other world than the world we have. It's this world here. It's consciousness. Our consciousness is not going to shift so far that we don't even know who we are anymore. But like the apostles say, we're going to be changed in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. And we're going to go into another stage. It may be after a great cataclysm. We're not going to have to do anything. The judgment is really going on right now. We're all judging ourselves. And the best thing we can do on the day of judgment is not to judge anyone, but to uplift each other and remind each other that as soon as we can forgive ourselves, we will be able to forgive others. And then the long-awaited achievement of Christ consciousness and exaltation and heaven will arrive on earth. I don't know if I got to the conclusion that I wanted to get to. I'm trying to make it crystal clear that life is, it is good, and there is not going to be any pain that we ourselves do not want. That everything's going to be perfect forever. And that's how we're going to be perfect, is we're going to be able to go to bed and rest and just not have to do anything. And then when we want to, we can get up because we're ready and we'll do everything. And sometimes, even though we're not supposed to be up during the night, we like to go out and party during the night just to feel what it's like, just to see and understand the things that we don't understand. Look up at the sky and see all the stars and say, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. We've got to have this wonder because there's still so much to know. But it's not a fearful thing that we don't know everything. All that's important is that we find the I am. We can reach the place that no matter what's going on, we understand it's all for a purpose, that we're immortal, nothing can ever really happen to us, but that right now we're just pretending to be in this little world. We're doing magic. We're watching the fireworks. We're in awe of the beauty. And that's how we give glory, by being in awe and giving thanks. And when we reach that point of giving thanks, I think we reach that immortality where we can be happy even when some little things go wrong, but we no longer have that fear. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve. I think we're getting close. I think if you look around the world today, even though there's a lot of pain and suffering, I think we're on the verge of ecstasy. So we're going to talk more about that, tie it in better with some of the astrology and things that we're learning. We're going to get this down as well as we can get it down. We're going to understand it. And we couldn't have understood it had we not gone through all the crap we've been through. Anyway, I'm going to probably leave it there and get this loaded. Hope you have a wonderful evening, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.